Good morning, world. Meria here, alive and kicking. Welcome to the show. Today I have an old friend of the show, and it's been quite some time since he's been on the show. Allen Roland. Let me tell you a little bit about Allen. He is a heart-centered spiritual consultant and advisor. He's a lecturer, he's a writer, he has a weekly political social commentary on his blog, which I will post the address for that. It's Allen L. Roland's weblog blogspot.com. Easier, go over to his website, allenroland.com. There's a live link here. He's also a featured columnist on Veterans Today, and he's a guest on a lot of radio and TV shows. And God, I don't even know how many years it's been since he's been on the show, so I'm happy to have him back. Good morning, Allen.
Good morning, and wonderful to be back with you again, Meria.
I know, it's been a long time. I don't even remember how long. But you know what they say, time flies when you're having fun.
That's absolutely true. Particularly during these times of crisis, that's when the true believers are brought together. So that's why we're together again.
Okay, well, I don't know what bigger crisis we can have than voting for door number one or door number two. Either way, it looks like we're doomed.
The lesser of two evils, but there is the lesser of two evils, of course, I am advocating that there's one major good that's coming to the surface there, and it certainly came through today, and that's Jill Stein.
Absolutely.
Jill Stein is a laugh progressive voice who's anti-war and wanted to be heard, and it's being heard. So go ahead. I'm in your hands.
No, I absolutely agree. Allen, how long have you been doing the work you do?
Oh, my God. I've been doing this at least 2000. That's 15 years, 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I've been doing my column, and I've been also as a heart-centered consultant, which I really, in essence, do soul retrieval. I jumpstart people's hearts. This is where Bradshaw comes in, John Bradshaw. I use a lot of his exercises that he used during his work, and I jumpstart their heart by getting them to come from gratefulness and discover there's another whole part of themselves that they've ignored.
Exactly.
And it's very homework-oriented, and when you start doing your homework and thanking people, guess what? You start feeling what it's like to talk from your heart. And that's what happens with these vets that I've worked with. Over 100 vets with PTSD who have got to the other side, to another choice. Mm-hmm. But this is just, besides my writing, my column, which I write about on my column too, and my individual private consulting, what I do is I jumpstart people's hearts. And I'm very good at it, mainly because I'm sharing the joy and delight that's, guess what? Deepest inside of them.
Exactly. Well, you know, I wanted to preface this because I don't know if everybody is aware of who John Bradshaw was. I know he recently died. I guess it was just a couple of months ago. He was 82 years old. But I have to tell you, Allen, he was one of my favorites. I mean, he was absolutely one of my favorite heroes. He was a pioneer in the self-healing. Well, you know, I had the good fortune of seeing him in person. And as an intuitive person myself...
As I did too, by the way. As I did too.
Right. I watched him on that stage, and I have to tell you, all I saw was a bouncing ball of light. I never saw anything like it. I've only seen about 3 people in my whole life that came across that way. And then, of course, I had taken some of his classes. I had done some of his sessions with him. And, I mean, he was magnificent. You know, every book, every video. Remember when he had, I guess it was on PBS, when he had a regular show. And I think the reason I really respected him is here's a guy who walked his talk. He lived it.
Absolutely true.
And, you know, for me, it was just a big thrill. He was just a big thrill. And, you know, his book, Family Secrets, I still recommend that to this day.
And rightfully so. But what was the major thing you got out of?
Well, it's interesting. What the major thing I think was really healing your inner child. And, you know, I took a few of his classes because I had brought some of my own students to it who I felt they needed it. I didn't. I didn't have any family secrets. I didn't have any issues. And then I was the one crying the most. So
you were in denial.
Right. But he was exceptional of pulling it out of you in such a loving way. And I mean, the healing was immediate.
Oh, absolutely true. And one of the reasons I think he did that, and I love to share with my own experience of him too, and some of his exercises were just brilliant, was because he was sharing the joy. He was sharing the joy, although he couldn't quite identify that it was underneath your deepest pain. He led people to the pain that most of them have been avoiding their whole life. What I've done is taken Bradshaw one step further by identifying and living the joy that's underneath that pain. And so basically, he identified that we're all wounded. And unless we basically start dealing with that pain and go through it, we're never going to find another choice. And his exercises were brilliant. What was the exercise that got you?
Well, there were a few, but the one that I remember the most, I mean, this was such a long time ago. God, it must have been 25 years ago. He was doing a rescue your inner child. And at that point, I think he had us working maybe in groups of 4. I mean, the room was slammed. And again, like I told you, I was there for my friend. I was like, okay, what am I going to do, And, it was very interesting because, my mom, she had a lot of problems. She tended towards depression and whatnot. And, I wasn't exactly her favorite, we'll put it that way.
Mine either. Me either, by the way, but go ahead.
And then when he took us back, I don't know, I was a little girl, maybe 4 or 5 years old. And I could see my mother there, and she was berating me. And I went into all that fear and shock that a little kid goes into.
Yes.
And then I remember he said, look away and see who's there for you. He had you glance at a distance. Who's there to rescue you?
Yes.
And much to my surprise, my daughter was there. And my daughter was just screaming towards me. Mom, run towards me, Mom. Run. I'll run.
Yes. Run towards the love.
Right. And I ran towards my daughter, and I had like a nervous breakdown in the audience. I was crying like a baby. And of course, after the session was over and whatnot, I called my daughter. And you know what? Till today, it's hard for me to talk about that. That's how emotional it was.
It's important that you do, because if you're outlining exactly the beauty of Bradshaw, he led you back to the wounded child, and then let you know, exactly as I do, by the way, let you know that there were people there that were there for you, people who loved you. Mm-hmm. And then that's what I do when my particular work, you thank these people. Mm-hmm. And thank them, and what happens? You go through the barrier, the event horizon, and you find the little child.
Absolutely.
So that's exactly what you were doing.
Right, and I always loved that he said, you can go back and heal your inner child by parenting yourself.
Absolutely true.
And that whole, rescue was amazing. And then several years later, when he came out with Family Secrets, which is a great book, I picked it up and, of course, started reading it, because in those days, I was reading everything I could get my hands on, especially with my show. I must have read about 2,000 books in the 17 years of doing this show. And it's interesting because my older sister and I have similar study habits. That's just the way we grew up, the way we were taught. And I started reading the book, and one of the things Bradshaw tells you is, if you don't remember an instance, call one of your siblings or somebody who's still alive who might know and be able to fill in some of the information.
Who will be your... Bradshaw was such an incredible, how should I put it? He was a mentor for me, which basically is exactly what I do too, is that find somebody who remembers you at that time, and have them fill in the gaps for you.
Right.
Continue.
Right. So I end up calling my sister, and my sister's like, oh no, she says, I don't want to talk about the past anymore. Why are you bringing this stuff up? Right. And I said, Rose, I'm reading.
That's typical.
I know. So I said to her, I'm reading this book, and, I thought that, I was perfect, whatnot. But like every 2 pages, I had to put it down because it was triggering so many memories that I had totally forgotten. And she was pretty hostile the first few times I called her for fill-in information.
Because guess why, Meria? Because she didn't want to go back into the pain. She didn't know that underneath it was joy and love. So and that's rightfully so. I don't want to go back there. Which I bump into all the time. But the only way you can get people to do that, you have to be owning the joy and delight that's underneath it. And you did precisely the right thing. Continue.
Well,
I'm interviewing you, by the way.
I know. This is pretty good. Am I getting a session? Am I getting a free session here, Alan?
Of course you are.
What happened was my sister finally, after a month or two, bought the book. And
Good.
she had a few months before I was going to visit because she lives in Florida. And I said, Rose, read the book so we can discuss it when I get there. And what's interesting is when I got to Florida, we both took our copies of the books and we went down to the beach. It's a wonder we didn't burn to a crisp talking about this. Okay. And what was really interesting, we had both underlined the exact same passages in the book.
Of course.
And made notes in the column, of what we were going to talk about. And of course that made us laugh, but like I said, we have the same study habits and we did grow up, only 2 years apart. So it was interesting enough that we had selected the same passages. But what was interesting is we decided to take...
How much older is your sister? How much older is your sister than you?
She's 2 years older.
Okay, great. Continue.
And it was interesting because as we're taking it one little passage at a time, and I mean, we discussed it to death. What was interesting was we had picked out the same paragraphs, but we had total opposite memories and views.
Mm-hmm.
So she
and that was what? What was the gist of that paragraph?
Well, let's just say I looked at one paragraph and my view was, my mother loved her more than me. Okay.
Okay.
But, and of course that kind of put in a little bit of jealousy or hostility between the two of us. My father favored me, my mother favored her. And when she would comment on the same exact paragraph, it was the total opposite. She talked about the pain of being my mother's confidant, how it separated her from her sisters and her father.
Absolutely true.
So we were able, trust me, Alan, we beat this to death for days going through this book.
The important thing is that you did that. In other words, you were already doing what my self-healing work, this is why this is such a wonderful conversation, what my self-healing work is all about. You would basically bring it out in the open, coming to a place of gratitude, and sharing with somebody who witnessed the same thing and having a chance to not only love that person, but actually feel compassion for them.
Right.
Continue.
Well, what was interesting was it brought us closer together because we understood each other more and realized that, everybody has their own perception of what's happening, especially based on, birth position, so many things. But we were both wrong about how we viewed our past and each other. And literally, it truly did bring us back a lot closer than we had ever been. I mean, the understanding was fabulous. So I did something that I don't generally do after that.
What's that?
I sat down and I wrote John Bradshaw a letter.
Good for you.
And I told him the value of his book, and I told him the whole journey with me and my sister.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have the book in my hand as I'm talking to you. And he actually wrote me back. Okay? He actually wrote me back.
But by the way, of course he did. Continue.
Right. He said, I want to read what he wrote. He said,
Okay.
Dear Meria, thank you for the voters' support in honoring me and my lifelong work. I always enjoy hearing stories of people who experience profound healing just by taking the time to be honest with themselves and each other. May you find blessing and strength to continue your courageous work. And I don't think I'll ever pass this book along. That's like getting a kiss from Elvis. Okay? You never want to wash your face.
But, I should just state one thing. John Bradshaw, for your listeners, John Bradshaw, he was a pioneer in self-healing and author of Reclaiming and Healing Your Inner Child, and it was an important and underrated compass in the field of humanistic psychology. It really probably the most. Bradshaw correctly maintained that our ultimate homecoming was reclaiming a lost and alone child within ourselves, and set the stage for my work in reclaiming the soul of that lost child by jumpstarting their hearts through gratefulness and forgiveness. So I am totally indebted to John Bradshaw. He set the stage for my work. He really did.
Wow,
so
I
my work is I go back and find that child, and the first thing I do is the same thing you did with your sister. Check it out. You don't remember anything? Check it out. Who was there with you? Who stands out? My sister. Okay, call her up. Thank her for being a gift in your life. And what happens if these conversations happen? Because they realize they both have their own perceptions, different perceptions. And that's how the self-healing works, exactly as you described. But you can do it yourself. In my book, I describe how you heal yourself in 7 sessions by taking accountability and coming from gratefulness. Now, let me ask you this question.
Sure.
Did you thank your sister?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. And, it's kind of interesting because even though I'm in Arizona and she's in Florida, we don't see each other that often, but we're always in touch. And interestingly enough, last night, I don't know what movie she watched, but it was like she got her political wake-up call that everything we've ever been taught is a lie. The fallacies of our elections, et cetera, and she sent me this long email basically saying what most people say once they realize that they've been living a program, how sad and how disillusioned she is. And I of course called her this morning and said, welcome to my world. But I told her, waking up to this reality when it happens, it's like going through the 7 stages of grief.
Yes, exactly. But what's the last 2 stages of the 7 stages of grief?
I don't even remember them in order, so I couldn't
Celebration and service.
Right.
See, when you break through the grief, when you finally surrender to the pain, with a blind faith that underneath it is joy, intention, and purpose, you break through to service. You'd be surprised. I mean, most people, and Bradshaw is one of these people, he was in service from a place of celebration. He broke through and was in service. By sharing himself, he was in service. But so I'm doing the same thing. You are too, Meria. Mm-hmm. I'm in service from celebration. So why do I do that? Because to get through that person who's in deep grief, I must have the courage to own my joy in a world of victims. One of my favorite questions. Do you have the courage to own your joy in a world of victims? Yes, I do. But that's what cuts the ice. They see, like I'm a veteran, former Navy fighter pilot, but I have the courage to own my joy in the world of victims. And that leads them to the joyful little boy inside themselves or little girl inside themselves. So you must be owning the joy that's deepest, and joy and delight that's deepest inside you. Bradshaw was almost there. And he was like a joyful elf in many ways, but he didn't quite embrace it yet. That's why I corresponded with him, sent him my book, all that stuff. And because he hadn't quite grasped that underneath that pain that he led us to is joy, intention, and purpose. And not only that, our path and a loving plan.
Well said. But, for anybody that's out there and not familiar with John Bradshaw's work, I mean, you can get it probably in your library for free, okay? All his DVDs, all his books. And the other thing I liked about him, I don't remember which one of his later books, where he actually said that some of his early work wasn't up to par and that as he continued to learn, he kind of honed in on his program. How many people would say that?
Yeah.
But he was ever evolving, and a decent teacher, counselor, therapist, whatever you want to call it, should be always evolving.
Absolutely true. Always learning, but at the same time, always thanking the people who paved the way for you to get where you are now.
Absolutely.
That's why I wrote that article about Bradshaw.
Well, and that's why I wanted to do this show about Bradshaw.
Yeah.
Because, if a movement... Yeah.
Multiplies.
Right. So
he started the inner child movement. And he passed on at 82 years old. But guess what? He passed through the event horizon. But I'm sure he knew, glimpsed, because he read my stuff too. I'm sure he glimpsed that basically he was going through to a place of joy. Here's what happens when you pass through. Pass this on to you, Meria.
Okay.
When you get through, I've been writing a lot of stuff about this, the final event horizon of death. Guess what you're going to experience as you go through? What is it?
You're going to...
I'm concentrating a lot on this now. What is?
You're gonna experience what you think you're gonna experience, what you created.
No, no. You are going to experience, and even Alexander, who had that near-death experience and wrote that great book about what's beyond what it's perfect. Everything beyond death is perfect. He's the one that identified this, and it's absolutely true. You're going to experience being profoundly loved, so deeply loved. That's how he experiences near-death experience. So it's almost too much to handle. So guess what happens when you're experiencing being that deeply loved? What do you come face to face with?
You come face to face with love.
No, with your unworthiness. Do I
Oh,
deserve this?
I don't know. I don't.
That's
I don't usually feel
different.
that way, but I understand because I think a lot of people don't get what they want even in life because they truly
That's
don't.
right.
They truly don't believe they deserve it. That was pounded into
That's
them.
right. That's the biggest thing in the way of people healing themselves because of their unworthiness. What's the only antidote for unworthiness?
To love
These are
yourself.
questions. No, gratitude is the only antidote. So when you start thanking people like you did with your sister, there's not one person in my life that I have not thanked. I talk to my sisters all the time. I went through, listen, a total dysfunctional family. And I talked to my sister Edie, who's a year older than me. She comes home and says, Edie. And she laughs like crazy because I'm joining her to that same place we were growing up, surviving in a dysfunctional family. And so my point is this, is that you have to thank these people. Tell them why they're a gift in your life. Every time you do, that is the lifeblood of soul consciousness, is gratitude. So when you live with a grateful heart, Meria, you're in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful things start happening. They
Right.
really do.
Right. Well, that was kind of what I was trying to explain to my sister this morning because I know the pain of waking up to reality. And I said to her, listen, the safest place you can be is inside yourself. It's all about your spirituality. It's all about enjoying your life despite what's going on around you. You can be educated and know what's going on, but you have to choose whether you want to participate in the madness or not. And I choose
Here's how you
not to.
participate. But here's how you participate, Meria. Not to interrupt you, but I mean, I can almost see your sister.
Sure.
And that's what I've done with my brothers. I've helped my brother go through the final event horizon, my twin brother, by getting him to come from gratefulness and let him know how much I deeply I loved him, and his daughter, empowering his daughter to be there for him and celebrate with him, but he went through. Oh my God. Okay. So the way you do it is you must take an active role. Start thanking the people in your life that you haven't thanked yet. That's how you do it. Really simple. So there are people in your life who you must thank. Have you thanked them? Why haven't you? Well, that person knows no. That person does not know until you take the action. There's no change without action. It's so simple, Meria, but it's true. You must thank the people who have been there for you. Because if you don't, and you go through the event horizon, and suddenly you hit this avalanche of love, and you suddenly realize, oh my God, I haven't thanked all these people. So you have to go back and thank them somehow.
Right.
That's not going to be me. I already have done it.
Right. Exactly.
I'll just be drinking it in. So my point is, that's how Blake died, singing songs to his wife. He already knew. William Blake, he knew he had done what he was supposed to do. He was the one that we were putting earth a little space to bear the beams of love. Well, he was already doing it.
Right.
And so he went right through, singing songs to his wife.
Well.
So tell your sister, here's your homework, Meria. Okay. Tell your sister to start thanking people in her life who have really been there for her, who she has not thanked yet. Watch what happens.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what? Well, I'd like to, yeah, absolutely. But, I'd also like to add, and you may or may not agree, but what I find is the older I get, the more smarter I seem to be getting. And I realized that you have to thank the people that were really bad to you, too.
Absolutely true.
Okay?
Absolutely true. Because you learn something from this. And by the way, because this is where compassion comes in. See, compassion begins with ourselves. Like my older brother was a total idiot. Still is. And he had a major heart attack. I still talk to him. I talked to him, but I mean, it's all that's gone. I thanked him for basically being there for me when I really needed him at one time, and then telling him the truth and have him get it. But my point is this: he was a test for me. Can you own your joy of who you are in a world of victims? My brother was a huge victim and never got beyond his victim issues. But I touched his heart. Didn't even touch that little boy inside of himself. He had an incredible dream after meeting me one time, and I helped interpret his dream, saying, that's the little boy inside of you. You haven't claimed him yet.
Right, right. Well,
And,
he's probably
and
lucky
so,
he had you for a brother, but I'm sure he didn't understand you.
of course not.
But look, it
Doesn't
took all
matter.
these years for my sister to admit, now I understand, where everybody's in the family, of course, that I was the crazy one and a conspiracy freak and blah, blah, blah. And then one day she just wakes up and she gets it and she honors me for my work.
Yes. Now, could you accept that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Good.
If I didn't accept it, I wouldn't have comforted her and give her some direction to get out of her depression.
Now, who else? Another question I ask you is this. Since we're sort of having a semi-session here, how many people have you not thanked in your life that you haven't thanked you? How old are you now, right now?
I'm 66. All I need is one more six. That's what I tell people. I only need one more six.
Are there major people in your life that you have not thanked?
No. And I've learned only in the past, I would say maybe 10 years, to let go of the people I hated and thank them too. I'll give you an
Let me ask you this question.
Go ahead.
Why did you hate them?
Because they were bad to me. My interpretation was they were bad to me.
Okay.
A good example, my first husband was the worst man God ever put on the face of the earth. Okay. I was young, naive, stupid, Italian, thinking that, if you got an abusive husband, that's just the way it goes. You deal with it, blah, blah, blah. It's normal. But he was, anything and everything a man could possibly do wrong in a marriage, he did at least 3 times a day.
Let me ask you this.
What?
Did he remind you of anybody?
No, believe me, I've never seen a soul like that again on the face of the earth since. So, but what happened was I carried that, through 2 other marriages.
Okay.
And, the anger of my allowing myself to be oppressed in so many ways, it kind of made me not give 100% in other relationships.
Of course.
And
So you made a decision, and based on all that pain,
right.
I'm never going to open my heart with anyone again.
No, well,
Being treated like this, there's no way I'm going to.
right. It was like, yeah, I'm never going to love like that again. And
That's
then
right.
as I got older and deeper into my spirituality, I began to understand the role he played and how high a soul,
What was the role he played?
Well, he taught me every lesson I needed to know to get through the rest of my life. It was like a college
Like what?
education in 3 years. That I had value, because when I was being oppressed, I obviously didn't think I had value. That I had power, and that I didn't have to take any shit off anybody, pardon the language. And that I could live my life exactly the way I wanted to. And I've done that. And it's interesting because a few years back, I wrote a small book on relationships. And Alan, if you would have told me this when I was in it, I would have said, you're crazy. But I dedicated the book to him. And I said he was my greatest teacher.
Okay, now let me ask you this. Is he still alive?
No.
Is he or not?
No, he isn't.
Have you thanked him? Did you thank him?
Absolutely. I still have full conversations with him.
Okay, then you need to do it again. And because this is how you get through this. Even the persons who basically hated you, whatever, they were tests. And if you can break through and open up your heart with them, even them, you're going to break through from a place of gratefulness. You're going to reach a place of compassion inside yourself. And you're going to realize compassion for them. Like my older brother, which I was just talking about. And he was treated, he had a real bond with my real father, who I never met, because he was 2 years older than me, and my mother and dad divorced.
Oh.
But he tried to get hold of his dad, and he finally searched for him and found him in Cape Cod, and his father, they were going to get together, and he hung up on him, said, I don't want to see you. That was like devastation again. He spent his whole life looking for his father. So that's how wounded he was. By sharing myself and my joy, I broke through that little boy inside of him and realized how hurt he was and never trusted anybody. He took it out on his brothers, everyone else. It doesn't matter.
Right.
But he had a major heart attack. I touched his heart. Laughing, back from the dead, Dick. Hey, how you doing? Okay. That was just this week. And he loves it.
Well,
because
that's
I don't
good.
carry any antagonism towards him.
Right.
I realized that he had his own journey. And he was acting out in his own way and basically putting down people he loved because he basically was hurting.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't want anyone else to be happy, so he hurt everyone else.
Right.
Oh, why?
Right.
So what?
Well, as you called it, a world of victims. And I think a lot of times victims don't even recognize that they're, just keep promoting their victimization.
Of course they do. So the point is this, that's such an easy phrase to remember. Do you have the courage to own your joy in a world of victim? Which leads me to this next question. You ready for this?
Wait, hold that question. We have to go to break.
Okay.
Hold that question. Don't lose your train of thought. Stay with us. Alan and I will be right back for this session. Stay with us.